If you carry a firearm and discharge your weapon in self-defense, you could face hundreds of thousands of dollars in legal fees and expenses. So carry the protection of CCW Safe, Self-Defense Legal Services membership. Upfront payment of all criminal and civil defense costs with no out-of-pocket for members. Unlimited defense budgets, unmatched legal expertise. Carry the same level of support police officers have. Carry CCW Safe, the highest caliber.
And we are here tonight. I am your host, John Wheaton. I am the co-host of the Survival Dispatch podcast on Monday through Sunday here on the Survival Dispatch YouTube channel, as well as Rumble. Real quick, you guys, if you like our content, I'm going to throw a little reminder your way to like and subscribe to this and share it with your friends, because we are trying to grow this platform so that we can get more information that you guys all love out to everyone who we can convince to be on our side. So it's really, really important that you guys do that part for us. But tonight we are going to get into a very, very interesting subject. Before we do that, I also want to give a plug to our Patreon. Our Patreon is an amazing tool for all of you guys that love our content. I know that a lot of you guys have already subscribed, but it is very, very important that we continue to grow that, because that helps fund everything that you guys get here, as well as some of our patriotic sponsors. So make sure you go over to patreon.com/survival dispatch and sign up. You can sign up for free, and that gets you a few things. But if you really want to get everything behind the paywall, it's $9.99 a month, and you guys get the survival guide. You get access to our signal chat, as well as our insider magazines that has everything that you guys would need for any kind of survival situation that you guys would run into. So now that that's over, let's go ahead and dive into our topic. And we're going to hit some headline news that's been popping up. Some of it's not brand new to some of you guys, but it is important to cover. And I want to throw this out there because it just goes to show you how much more disdain we should have for the Obama administration. And spoiler alert, the other night I was sitting with my children at the table, and my 4-year-old, who we were getting ready to adopt out of foster care, looks at me and says, "Hey, Dad, Obama's stupid." Apparently she's heard me say some derogatory things about Barack Obama. I thought, wow, maybe I'm raising my kids right to spot tyrants and weasels very, very easily. So let's get on this real quick. This is from the Joe Rogan podcast. This is Mike Benz talking about USAID funding. And this is from Libs of TikTok. Holy crap, Obama pretended to send USAID money to foreign aid countries, but was actually funneling it to Cayman Islands to be used for rental riots. So let's watch a little bit of this 7-minute video. We're not going to watch the whole thing, but this will give you guys an idea of what this really was about. And then we're going to dive into a little bit more.
This was a scandal during the Obama USAID era. Now, we were running a number of rogue USAID operations in Cuba at the time. By the way, I have to say for the record, I'm no fan of the Cuban government. I'm not even weighing in on whether it's the right or wrong thing to do, in terms of regime change there, or, liberating people there from autocratic excess by that government. I'm simply showing the American people where your tax dollars are going and how these things are structured in order to systematically fool you and to fool Congress and to fool the White House. So, for example, this is, and I'll show a couple other things in a second here, but this is Zunzaneo. So if you just scroll for a second, we'll start with this, right? So it was an online social media. Just scroll up 1 second. We'll start at the top here. It was an online social networking microblogging service created by USAID and marketed to Cuban users. This was a Twitter knockoff. See, the background of this is this is 2009, 2014, that period. The State Department and USAID were gangbusters gung-ho on the promise of Arab Spring style social media revolutions to topple other governments. That the Arab Spring was a Facebook revolution and a Twitter revolution. USAID pumped $1.2 billion in, and we sponsored these activist groups and these civil society organizations to learn how to use Facebook, learn how to use Twitter, learn how to use hashtags, learn how to coordinate street protests so that everyone knows where to go, what street to show up on, what kind of slogans to use in order to create the pro-democracy, predicate for it. But the problem was, at the time, Cuba did not allow U.S. social media in. So they said, so they're not allowing Twitter in. How can we get a Twitter there, but without calling it Twitter, without making it look like it's coming from the U.S.? So what they did is they took the exact same thing as Twitter, same user interface, same like and retweet button. Zunzanillo is the Cuban slang word for hummingbird. So it means it's bird. It was the Twitter bird, the whole thing. But the whole trick about it was you have to make it look like it's coming from the Cubans if you're going to do this operation. So what you'll see is it began running. So this is 2010. This is right during the Arab Spring. And what you'll see is they took funds, millions of dollars of funds that were concealed as humanitarian funds designated for Pakistan. Now, I don't know if Joe or the audience, if you've looked at a map lately, but Pakistan is not exactly the next door neighbor of Cuba. Right. So, and this is the Wikipedia whitewashing, and we can get into the deeper layers of this, but contractors funded by USAID, I should note, the main.
I'm going to stop it right there. He goes into much more detail about this, but this is a crazy, crazy thing that they were actually just funneling money through to other organizations. And I'll give you a little bit of background to this and how the Obama administration really started to flex its muscles of influence. And this happened very early on. A lot of people think that what Obama did is he came in and he went after right-wing media, and he used social media to combat right-wing media. That's actually not the case. He actually went in and went after his own side of the media, because what he wanted to do was he wanted to eliminate any level of journalism from his own side, so that when he started to demonize the right, it would look like we were just partisan hacks in the media. So what he started doing was leveraging social media against actual legacy media organizations to push them into acquiescence to his agenda. And over time, that's why when you actually look back at the divide, typically, if you talk about political science, what you would want is historically is they use the analogy of two lemonade stands on a beach, and they're right next to each other, and you just want to move the needle a little bit left or a little bit right. Historically, that's a lot of what has happened in the political world. I'm not saying I agree with it, but this is just political science of what they generally like and what the powers that be generally like. However, with Obama, you get a massive swing. Everybody wants to talk about Trump being this massive swing. It wasn't Trump. It was actually Obama. And Obama was really the first celebrity president, even more so than Ronald Reagan, because he fancied himself as an influencer, not necessarily as a statesman or a politician. He was a celebrity in his own brain. And so he wanted to leverage all of these modern technologies to do this. Why does that matter? Because once he got control of the narrative on his own side, then he could go after the other side very effectively. And then it would look like those people that were left leaning, oh, well, these are always the media sources that I trusted. So they're calling these people crazy right-wing conspiracy theorists. They must be. And then if you look at the history of color revolutions, this is how the playbook is played. Rules for radicals. There's tons of information about this in the playbook that the left is using, or communists use. So now we get to USAID. He had to have a way to fund this massive conglomerate of being able to put together these spontaneous protests. And he had to have a way to fund it, because we know what happened in 2020. People were paid to show up at these protests, riots, and they literally called them rent-a-riots. So they're paying these guys, they're bussing them in, they're leaving things for them to use as implements so that they're actually not bringing weapons with them. The weapons are already there. So let's look at this. You guys remember this. We all remember this. Let's watch this. Remember those pallets of bricks that showed up in random cities during the George Floyd Summer of Love in 2020? We remember that. Here's one from Noah Jennings. This is in 2022. This is right after the overturning of Roe. Ten pallets of bricks next to the Capitol complex. Why in the world would you need those in the street next to the RNC? This is all a part of the broader plan to leverage everything and make it look like it's organic. But a lot of those plans have been foiled. However, we are still dealing with the repercussions of what Barack Obama did to our country, whether it be Obamacare. That was the snowball rolled down the top of a mountain that turned into an avalanche in our healthcare system. And that is a thing that we're still dealing with in a way that is unexplainable. Our premiums have gone up, and it's because of this mandate. It's because of requiring everybody young to get coverage or to pay a fine. All of this stuff is a part of it. The media divide. We have seen the ideological divide crater in this country. And a lot of people used to be a lot closer together in their ideology. Now, I would argue where we're at now is that most of the sane people, the people that are actually able to be reached, are shifting to one side because they're seeing the absolute insanity of what's going on the other side. Because the one thing that we got, among many things, but the one thing that I think is the unbelievable, it's like a mutant power that Donald Trump has, is that he exposes the left and he makes them go crazy. That's like his superpower. Regardless of any kind of legislation, any kind of laws, any kind of good that he has done, that's probably the biggest thing for me, at least, is that he is like the kryptonite to the left. He makes them seethe. He makes them really kind of lose their head and be unable to continue on in their plans, because he just is he's just a wrecking ball to those ideologies. So that is really one of the big items that's been popping up over the last 24 hours. There's a lot of other things going on, ongoing things about the judges. We're going to get to that. But I wanted to give that to you guys right up front, that this USAID, the reason that the left is so focused in on this like a laser is because of the things that were hidden inside of that government organization and the laundering and money scheme that just continues to be exposed over and over and over again. And I think we're going to get much more of this. But moving on to our big topic, and I want to ask you guys a question before we get into the meat of tonight. Full disclosure, we have a big chapter 1 somewhat smaller chapter 2, and our chapter 3 is small, but there's a lot to get to when it comes to this. And I've been thinking about this a lot, and I want you guys to comment. Do you guys think that we are in a cold civil war? And I'll explain what that is. Have we reached a point where the ideological divide, this is not geographical, this is not what you normally would see between the states, this is not like the Civil War of 1861. This is an ideological civil war, not fought necessarily with bullets. I hope we never fight it with bullets, but it's fought with legislation, judicial overreach, or rulings, and acts of open defiance. This is clearly, I think, in my mind, what we are dealing with. We are in a de facto cold civil war. But if you agree with that, and as we get into this, you're going to get more and more data and information on this. But if you agree with that, I want you guys to put a 1 in the chat. If you think that America is in a de facto cold civil war, go ahead and put a 1 in the chat. And if you don't, go ahead and put a 2 and maybe throw a reason why you don't think that. So moving into our main topic, the Constitution was built on balance, but today we've drifted far from the intent, replaced by judicial supremacy, the dangerous idea that the Supreme Court only defines our rights. Thomas Jefferson actually warned about this and the exact danger of turning judges into sole arbiters of freedom. They are not there to actually tell us what we're supposed to do. They are there to interpret the Constitution. So look no further than states openly defying Supreme Court's Bruin decision. So Bruin was the decision in 2022 that actually said that you have to, when you are judging gun control, this is something that's very important to me. When you're judging gun control, you have to take into account the intention of what the founders said at the founding, history and tradition of the United States at the founding, in order to be able to use that as a context for how you're going to pass gun control measures. And despite these clear rulings, this really actually nullified any gun control going forward for any weapons of war, because the reality is they wanted us to have weapons of war. So this was a very landmark decision that should have redefined the landscape of the Second Amendment in the country. But despite this clear ruling, it's crystal clear, and it builds on Heller, which was over a decade earlier, and it builds on that and defines it further. But instead of actually listening and saying, okay, we're going to have to live with this. In these blue states, Illinois, California, and many other states actually recently have started to move in the direction of unbelievable levels of gun control. They want to pass restrictive laws banning firearms, limiting magazines, openly challenging constitutional rights. But the fight doesn't end there. Blue states are pushing further to attempt to allow non-citizens to vote. This is something that New York has been doing recently, openly defying federal immigration laws. This is happening in my own state of Illinois, and turning cities into sanctuaries against lawful deportation. Illinois lawmakers even discussed granting gun rights to individuals illegally in America while stripping the same rights from law-abiding citizens. This is literally something that an Illinois judge ruled on, I think it was about a year ago. So they have no interest in helping their citizens or defining their rights or fighting for their rights, but they will fight for the rights of Trinidad and all of these other gangs that are coming into our country to wreak havoc. And MS-13, all of these guys being deported, and judges are actually stepping in to try and stop the administration from actually deporting hardened, dangerous criminals. This is really, really insane. And this cold civil war reveals the fundamental divide between two visions for America, one grounded in constitutional originalism and individual liberty, and another driven by political agenda, selective enforcement, and disregard for the rule of law. The stakes are clear, and will America remain a republic guided by the Constitution, or will we fracture into competing ideological states, each rewriting freedom in their own image? So let's get into some examples of tyrannical rule. I'm going to start with my own state because it's something that's close to me. And this is something that's just recently come out because we are dealing with a governor, the fat piece of junk up in Springfield, Illinois, and who is acquiescent to Chicago and really, honestly, is just using his office as a vehicle to try and run for president. But this just happened over the last couple of days. And you know that I am a big advocate for homeschooling. I'm a big advocate for all of these things because I don't believe that the government, and I am the husband of a school teacher, I don't believe the government should be indoctrinating our kids. And I know most of you guys agree. So this is HB 2827, and this is Illinois Awake, or Awake Illinois. This is a page on X. If you're in Illinois, worth a follow. They do a lot of things on the stuff going on in Illinois. So I'm going to read this real quick. It's a little lengthy, but I want to give you guys a picture because a lot of people aren't actually reading this the same way. I actually got into some arguments on my Facebook page with some people who didn't understand the ramifications. I don't think people actually read history or use history as a definition for when these laws come into being. So this is HB 2827. It is the Homeschool Act. And what it would do is the court would order for school enrollment. If homeschooling is deemed inadequate, the state will force enrollment into the public schools. Homeschoolers must document education or face truancy and legal action. 1, failure to submit your homeschool declaration form. So they have a form that you have to submit to your local school districts. The homeschool declaration form must be submitted annually by August 1st or within 10 business days of withdrawing from public school or moving into a new district. Consequences of non-compliance is the child be considered truant under Section 26(1) of the Illinois School Code. Truancy penalties apply under Section 26-10 and 26-11 of the School Code. Legal action. The regional office of the education truancy officer sends an official non-compliance notice under Section 26-7. If the homeschool administrator ignores 3 notices within 10 business days, a truancy hearing is initiated under Section 26-8. Possible penalties: fines to the family up to $500 per offense. So that can actually be a daily thing. Community service: a court ordered 30 hours of community service. Education negligence charges. If truancy is prolonged, it may lead to negligent charges with possible intervention of Child Protective Services. They're going to take the kids away. Failure to provide educational portfolio requirement. Upon request from regional education offices, homeschool administrators, this is the parents when they're talking about that, must provide an educational portfolio to prove that their child is receiving adequate education. Consequences for non-compliance. If the portfolio is not provided, authorities may question the adequacy of the homeschool program. The child may be classified as truant, so we're going down the same path as part 1, triggering the same penalties and failing to submit to HDF. Potential legal action, same as above. The school district, so this is in the hands of the district administrators, can investigate whether a homeschool is meeting the state educational requirement. If noncompliance is confirmed, authorities may order the child attend public school. And then you go down the same exact path that could end up with CPS picking your child up. No compliance to immunization and health records. So now they're going to require our kids get the same vaccinations as they do in public school, even though they're not in public school. I'm not going to read in detail all of this stuff because it's pretty lengthy. Consequences of fraudulent reporting or misrepresentation. So this has to do with being truthful about your HDF and portfolios. Investigation of DCFS and homeschooled children requirement. And long-term impact of non-compliance. Criminal record, repeated violations of truancy will result in criminal records for the parents. This is what they are proposing. Now, let me give you a little bit of context into this. When we talk about homeschooling, you guys should look into the actual studies they've done on test scores. And these are actual national test scores, SAT, ACT, all of the other state level requirements for education. Homeschoolers, on average, and this is consistent over the last 3 decades that this study has been done, and this is not some blog post in a mom's group on Facebook. This is an actual a guy, I forget his name off the top of my head, but this guy is one of the best study administrators in the world, and he has been doing this for a very long time. He has a very robust and detailed method to study these kids. So what do the test scores look like? Homeschoolers consistently score 15% to 25% higher than public school students, and about 7 to 12% higher than private schools. So this is not an issue, but Illinois is making it an issue. This is a solution in search of an issue. And this is a broken law already. And the homeschool groups are already in defiance of this, and they will defy the government on this. So that would be my question. What happens now when you have all of these homeschoolers that are being picked up by DCFS in Illinois? Because this was not a problem. And these kids, I personally know many friends of mine that homeschool. And this is a fundamental right. This is a deeper thing than even just homeschooling. This shows what they are willing to do, because the reality is red states and blue states, liberal states and conservative states, the liberals are on their heels right now. States like Illinois and California and New York are all on their heels because they're reeling, and they're seeing that the trend lines are moving to where they won't be able to win a national election for the Democratic Party by 2030 if the trend lines continue as they are, because it will be impossible to win an electoral victory by that time because of the balkanization that's going on. So this is just a taste of what is to come. And I've got another post here that we'll do, and then we'll move on to the next subject. I don't want to spend too much time on this, but I felt like it was top of the news and something that is very, very important to all of us with kids, and really all of us with grandkids. It doesn't really matter. We should be fighting for the freedom. It's always been a fundamental freedom that parents can raise their kids as they see fit. I understand that there's abuse. I understand that not every homeschooler is doing a good job. But this is not a problem. In my career field, when we go to solve problems, we don't solve the smallest problem first. We solve the biggest problem. Right now, reading is at 32% proficiency. Math is at 31% proficiency nationwide. And we're focusing on homeschoolers, which have consistently higher test scores. That's an ideological fight. That has nothing to do with an actual problem. So this is Kayleigh McEnany on Fox News talking about this. Let's listen to this real quick.
Think about the long arm of government and what it has done in our classrooms. First, it was critical race theory pushed on our children, then critical gender theory, then biological men and women's sports, locker rooms, they all get to be there. Then, oh, wait, your son wants to become a daughter. We'll hide that from you because we have parental secrecy policies. And now you want us to register our child with this school, which may include requiring parents to turn over what they're teaching. Well, what if you're a parent who says, I'm teaching creation to my child and not evolution? What if you're a parent who's going to teach Life begins at conception and a heartbeat begins at 5 weeks. What's going to happen to you? Do you trust J.B. Pritzker, the governor of Illinois and the state of Illinois, to not come for you? This is a huge deal. Good for you for standing, because mark my words, this will be weaponized the same way adoption has been pulled from underneath many Christians who want to adopt. The government will take advantage of this.
That is absolutely true. We are living in a spot where this is always the way that they pass these laws. It's just like the Floyd Act and for firearms that sat dormant for 50 years, where it was just, yeah, you can buy whatever gun you want. You just have to pay $11 for this, and you're fine. You can just buy whatever you want after that. And then we get PICA 4 years ago. And PICA was the registration of those firearms. You can keep them. You can't buy any new ones, but you can keep them. And as long as you register what you have. And now they have new laws that they pass. And the way that Illinois passes these laws is completely insane. They do what's called a gut and replace. I won't go into the details of that because it's kind of complicated the way that legislation works in Illinois, but they gut and replace these bills at the 11th hour so that the bills are not at all what they were at the beginning. So there's no chance for rebuttal. There's no chance for people to petition the government to not pass them. And so they just act as tyrants, as kings. So that is the reality of the whole thing. But this is not the only thing that's going on in Illinois. They're giving healthcare to illegals. So let's watch this quick video and how the government, this is Doge News, Department of Government Efficiency, audit reveals Illinois overspent $900 million in a 3-year program to give illegal immigrants access to state-sponsored health care.
This afternoon, a new audit from the state shows Illinois massively overspent in a program giving immigrants access to state-sponsored health care. The audit found over 3 years, the state spent $900 million more than expected on the program, partially due to it expanding 3 times since 2020 because the need was dire. Governor Pritzker, though, already proposed scaling back healthcare for undocumented immigrants in his proposed budget earlier this month. And advocates for the healthcare plan were at the state capitol yesterday fighting for it. But many Republican state lawmakers say the findings of this audit is reason enough just to scrap the entire program.
First of all, why do we even have this program? That's my question. But just more, and we're going to go across several different states. I said we have a big chapter 1, and this is just laying the groundwork for why I believe we are in a cold civil war, because the ideology of these states. Illinois is a Midwestern state, is surrounded by red states. It's not even a coastal state like California or Oregon or Washington. It's a very deep blue state because of one city in the northern tip of this state rules the entire state. And as a result, it's a deeply blue state because of the corruption in that big city. And they are just ruling over people in areas like my own that are extremely red. So let's look here. This is the next one. And this is talking about the sheriff's ability to report illegals to ICE. Let's watch this 58 seconds real quick.
How completely ridiculous it is to say that we have someone in custody in a county jail in Illinois who is an illegal alien, and the county sheriff isn't allowed to tell ICE to come pick them up. That's insane. Instead, they're going to be let go back onto the streets of everybody watching this right now to make those streets less safe, to commit more crimes in Illinois, because J.B. Pritzker and Kwame Rule didn't get the memo that 81% of the American public wants these people gone. They want them gone yesterday. So either lead and help President Trump or get out of the way, but stop this dilatory nonsense where all you're doing is delaying, and putting the people of Illinois at serious risk and harm. And whatever you
And even more evidence. This is Alex Jones. I'm not going to play this video, but you guys can see it if you have the sit rep. This is Illinois passes a bill to change the identity of violent illegal aliens to prevent them from ICE. This happened a few weeks ago, January 31st, 2025. So a couple months ago, where they're literally trying to help them change their identity so that they can stay clear of ICE. And these are violent felons in some cases. Absolutely, utterly insane. And that's really my overview for Illinois. So let's move to another state of Colorado. And this is another one. Colorado just tried to pull one of the most backdoor anti-gun moves we've ever seen. Instead of outright banning AR-15s and other rifles, they tried to bureaucratize the Second Amendment into oblivion, forcing gun owners through an absurd gauntlet of restriction, fees, and registrations. New eligibility cards required fingerprints, background checks, and no time limit for approval. 4 to 12-hour training courses with victim awareness lessons because that'll stop criminals. 90% tests on firearms law because now your rights come with a pop quiz. State-run gun registry because nothing goes wrong with those, right? And let's not forget, Colorado already has magazine ban, red flag laws, universal background checks, yet crime hasn't gone anywhere. Instead, they're admitting their policies don't work. They're doubling down. This is democratic and tyrannical rule 101. Enact a law. When it doesn't work, enact more laws. Don't ever think, oh, maybe that was not a law we should have enacted. But here's where it gets interesting. Even some Democrats backed out of the bill because they knew it was political suicide. They realized voters weren't having it. And that's exactly why we must keep the pressure on. You guys in the sit rep, this video is there. You can watch it on Colion War's YouTube channel. Great guy for Second Amendment law and what's going on nationally. Just really, really crazy. And I wasn't even sharing the tab. My fault. So here's the tab. And if you have the sit rep, all of this stuff is in our sit rep. This is one of the representatives, Representative Jarvis Caldwell from Colorado. And this is his speaking on the floor of the General Assembly in the Colorado State Legislature. Listen real quick. It's minute 23. You probably won't watch the whole thing.
Now, the bill sponsors came up here earlier and they talked about how New Jersey and Connecticut and Washington, D.C., they all have this. Maryland. Who cares? This is Colorado. We pride ourselves on the Western way of life. I don't care what Washington, D.C. passes or Maryland passes. And I lived in Maryland. And it's not that great. And what we're doing now is we're passing laws like Maryland passes, and soon we'll be not that great. So frankly, New Jersey, they can do what they want. This is Colorado. We pride ourselves on individualism, that rugged individualism, the Western way of life. I don't care what Connecticut does. Never even been to Connecticut. Members, this is the slippery slope that we're always talking about. The slippery slope of gun control. And we heard in committee time and time again from gun control activists that, you know, this isn't an infringement on your Second Amendment right. This is just a speed bump, which is a weird way to call an infringement. And I thought we already did this speed bump. If you all recall, members, which most of you were here, we already passed a 3-day waiting period, 3-day minimum waiting period. Technically, it could be more than that.
So that is crazy. And let's consider, and I'm just going to play the very first bit of this. This is from Gun Owners of America, talking about Colorado passing 8 new gun control policies. This was actually last year. This was the first round that they're saying now does not work. So we need more. You guys remember this? I mean, we covered this ad nauseum. Here's the Venezuelan gangs.
Wow.
Just going to play that much. You can watch this reaction from Gun Owners of America, but I wanted to give you guys a quick understanding of what's going on here. That was in Colorado, where they took over apartment complexes. The Venezuelan gangs took over apartment complexes with AK-47s and AR-15s. What'd the police do about it? Nothing. And they want to take the gun rights of the people that could actually defend themselves against this. They want to take their guns away. And they're not going to do anything about these gangs. If more of them come into the country, if more of them are around, they're not going to do anything about it. They're just going to business as usual. That's what you get into with your government. On another note, in Colorado, and this is a heartbreaking video. We are going to watch this. This is a heartbreaking video. This is also the Colorado government and what they are capable of. This is a father of two boys who his boys are now, his parental rights are being stripped because he does not want them transitioned. So let's watch this. 2 minutes and 20 seconds.
Good afternoon. I'm Jason Zook. I represent myself. This bill is for the critical protection of minor children. I'm a father of two boys, and I have had my parental rights stripped due to urging caution for medical gender-affirming care. I knowingly and lovingly married a bisexual woman. We were together for 19 years, married for 13, and started a family together. In 2018, she began to transition and identified as transgender, non-binary. I stayed in the marriage and supported my spouse. In 2019, they fell in love with a woman. The marriage broke down, divorce loomed. Suddenly, my two boys of ages 7 and 5 were being groomed before my very eyes. When it sadly came time to involve lawyers in the courts, our family was conveniently transformed. My spouse was now transmasculine, non-binary. Our 7-year-old was also transgender, and our 5-year-old was astoundingly non-binary. This all happened in a period of mere months. I have failed to save my children from unproven medical practices and procedures based on research which, let's be honest, is scant, haphazard, and in its infancy. My boys now have no relief from their mother's LGBTQ indoctrination. All I ever wanted as a parent was to give my children as much time as possible to answer the most crucial of all of life's questions: who am I? It now falls to the state to ensure the long-term health of its child citizenry. All I ask is this body is for patience, protect kids until they're 18, and they can do whatever they choose.
I'm going to stop it there. What a heartbreaking story. Now, I will say that guy had some red flags marrying a woman that had the rainbow jihad ideology already. But man, even with all of that, now his sons and the state have banned him from being a father because he was trying to protect his children, because he was trying to do his God-ordained job, the job of every man who has children and a family, and protect them. And now he is forced to watch his sons be indoctrinated and transitioned and have regret in all likelihood for the rest of their lives. Just broken. And this is a state legislature. This is an ideology that we have to be aware of and we have to be guard against. And honestly, these kinds of things are what makes me think, well, maybe I don't need to be in a blue state anymore. It's a difficult decision because my life is here and it has been for years. So it's hard, but man, are we in a bad place. So moving on to the next state, California, our favorite, just one of our favorites. This is another video of Calling on War talking about California's intense new limitations. And every January, there are actually people that live in California that are on YouTube that are gun tubers that will do these lists of the new regulations for firearms that California has. Because what 2A people are really good at is figuring ways to negate these laws as they go. And California is just slowly whittling away at people's rights. So watch a little bit of this, and then we're going to move on, because I want to see really how in the world does are these things working in these states. So we're going to get to that in a second.
Rifle and Pistol Association, Inc., v. Bruin, the Supreme Court ruled states are allowed to enforce shall issue permitting where applicants for concealed carry permits must satisfy certain objective criteria, such as passing a background check, but that may issue systems that use arbitrary evaluations of need made by local authorities are unconstitutional. In plain English, anti-gun states like California and New York can't say bark like a dog,
Bark like a dog.
or hop on one leg,
Hop on one leg.
and prove to us why we should give you a concealed carry permit. And maybe we'll give you one if we feel like it. Now that this Bruin decision is passed, these states are forced to come up with objective standards to getting a concealed carry permit. And if met, you automatically get the permit. However, the court didn't specify exactly what those objective standards should be. And as a result, these anti-gun states changed their concealed carry laws in such a way that on paper, you have an objective way to get a permit, but in reality, you still can't really carry your gun anywhere without breaking the law.
So I'd encourage you guys to watch that whole video. We're running short on time, so I'm going to keep moving. Real quick, just a little blurb about how the Bruin decision was specifically aimed at the state of New York. And then New York basically turned around and what they said is like, you can't actually deny people their right to carry arms outside of the home unless it's a gun-free zone. So what did Hochul do? Moved to make the entire city of New York is a gun-free zone, and a lot of other cities are gun-free zones. So we'll just make the whole thing a gun-free zone, and then that solves our problem. They're always looking for ways to move and to get around it. And we're going to get to some other things too, in my opinion, on where we stand and why we need the Supreme Court to actually step in and do their freaking job about a lot of this stuff. But real quick, let's see how this gun control is working. This is in California, in a place where actually in Oakland, where there's strict gun control. So let's check it out.
This is video showing one of 3 shootings in a West Oakland neighborhood since July 4th. Neighbors tell me this incident took place Wednesday shortly before 12:30 in the morning.
No, that's scary. That's real scary. It was like we were at war, and it don't make sense. It doesn't. And so far as I'm concerned, kids, stop. Just stop. It ain't worth it.
Some residents suspect young people may be responsible for 3 shootings along 10th Street in a span of 2 weeks. They say the lack of security at the public housing complex in the area may be attracting criminals.
Just insane. But I do want to give you guys a really bright side of this before we move away from California. You guys know this Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals, one of the most liberal courts aside from DC, it resides in the state of California. But there is a judge on that Supreme Court, or that, not Supreme Court, the appellate court, who is just a national treasure. And this guy, in his dissent of the Ninth Circuit not granting the decision that's actually constitutional on the California gun law that has been, I think it's been making its way through the court for like 8 years now. This is on a magazine ban. This is a part of an 18-minute video that this guy put out. The start of this video, he's sitting at his desk and an AK-47 is on the wall behind him. So this kind of gives you an idea of what this guy does. Well worth you guys finding this. You can search Ninth Circuit Judge rebuttal or dissent, and this will pop up. It's all over the place. The whole video is about 18 minutes long, as I said. But he goes through all of this detail that, as gun owners, we all know. But it's just amazing to see somebody on the court to have this kind of balls.
This little piece here
It's necessary for the operation of the firearm. It's a tiny little piece that you need to have for the firearm. And so you would think, well, since it's necessary, then it must be an arm protected by the Second Amendment. But not under California's logic in this case. See, you can replace this factory takedown lever with a different factory takedown lever. This one's called a gas pedal. And when you do that, you replace it, you put the slide back on. Now the firearm is a lot more controllable under recoil. You can, just like with the red dot sight, you can do faster follow-up shots. You can aim the gun more quickly, and you can control it better. So again, as with the red dot sight, as with the higher capacity magazine, this particular takedown lever makes the gun more dangerous when it's misused, but also makes the gun more effective for its intended purpose when it's used properly. So under California's logic, because this is an accessory, this little takedown lever, it could be replaced with a worse part. This little takedown lever is not protected. It's not part of the arm protected by the Second Amendment. Well, you might ask yourself, well, what about the grip? Like, you think this grip, certainly it must be part of the arm. I mean, it seems like that's a pretty key part of a firearm, is the grip of a pistol. Well, actually, under the majority's argument, it would not be protected. And the reason is, here's a bunch of grips that I've accumulated over the years. I'm just going to pull a couple out here. This is a nice small grip, a nice small light grip. This is a big heavy grip. So what you can do on this firearm is you can remove the slide, remove that takedown lever, take what's called the fire control unit out of the firearm. This is actually the firearm under the ATF's definition. And you can take this fire control lever and you can put it inside this smaller grip. And you could use this grip for, say.
So that's a system that's a SIG P320. And very, very common now that a lot of these guns are becoming modular, so everybody can kind of customize them. This guy is amazing. Agree. With screw the squad here. This guy's freaking priceless. National treasure. Dude needs to be on SCOTUS tomorrow. If nothing else, for no other reason, but for our gun rights, he would be an absolute blessing on that. But yeah, really, really incredible. So there are some bright points, and there are good people in every state, even if it's overwhelmingly a blue state. Let's move on to Washington State, just to the north of California. And this is House Bill 1163, requiring you to purchase a permit prior to purchasing a firearm, just passed the House 58-38. Your Second Amendment rights are under direct attack by Democrats in Washington State. And this is basically, they're kind of enacting a similar thing to the FOID card with extra little tidbits in there. That is a cost. And remember, according to the Voting Rights Act and all of these other things that have happened historically, you cannot be charged for a fundamental right. Fees, taxes. Technically, we should not be taxed on ammunition or firearms if that ruling was applied across the board to everything. I understand having to pay for the firearm, but you should be able to make your own if you want to. So, real quick, we've got Washington gun law, and this guy is a absolute amazing dude. We had him on our Righteous Savages podcast the day after Trump won, talking about the potential of future of Second Amendment. Really, really awesome. You guys should go check that episode out. He is a wealth of knowledge. And let's see what he says in this about House Bill 1163. Will Kirk from Washington Gun Law. Follow him.
Okay, so how unconstitutional is House Bill 1163 that just passed out of the Washington State House of Representatives? You know, the permit to purchase a firearm. Well, here's the best way to explain it to you. Go ahead and write these words down on a piece of paper. Mandatory training at a cost to the user and a license from government before you can purchase a gun. Okay, then to really best explain it, you just go ahead and take the last three words out of it, purchase a gun, and drop in any other constitutional right, such as vote, go to church, get a lawyer, or according to a Senate joint resolution in Washington State where they actually want to make this a constitutional right as well, ask yourself, how reasonable, how lawful, and how constitutional does that seem to you?
And again, Wilkirk not just he doesn't just cover gun law in Washington State where he's from, but he does in all the other states. He's been a wealth of knowledge for Illinois. When the PICA Act followed, he blew up in Illinois because of everything that he was putting out informationally. Just a really, really amazing person to follow. So in other news, this is the activist judge silent as millions entered the U.S. illegally, but goes crazy when Trump tries to remove them. The federal judiciary turned a blind eye to millions of illegals flooding the country, citing executive discretion and refusing to intervene. But the moment Trump acts to enforce the law and remove them, the same judge screams unconstitutional and blocks every move. Why? It's simple. Mass importation helps Democrats. Deportation, it threatens their plan. This isn't law. This is partisan politics. And this is in response to Elon Musk talking about why did the federal judiciary turn a blind eye to importation of millions of illegals? It's insane. It's insane that we're talking about this, and these judges need to be dealt with. I don't believe that that impeaching them necessarily is the way. I don't think that we could actually get that through, but we have to say no to judicial supremacy. Judicial supremacy is these people are unelected. They're not elected, they are appointed by presidents via the Constitution. There is a reason for that. The founders did not want the judiciary to be a political apparatus necessarily. They wanted them to be able to act within the confines of the Constitution without having to worry about being reelected. So they didn't have to play politics, and they could judge according to the Constitution, free of any of the burdens of partisan politics. That's a beautiful thing. However, there is only one judicial body that is actually mentioned in the Constitution. And what judicial body is that? Oh, the district level judge from the state of Illinois or the state of Colorado or the state of New York, right? No. It's the Supreme Court of the United States. They are the only co-equal branch that is mentioned. Everything else is assigned by the Congress. It was these judges were set up as a way to be able to handle the large size of the country on a judicial level. However, they should not be ruling on national things. That is exclusively and solely the responsibility of the Supreme Court. They are the ones that are supposed to talk about the national level items and how the executive branch and how a law that affects. Now, they can rule on state level laws once it makes its way through the entirety of the court system. But make no mistake, the Supreme Court is the only judicial branch mentioned in the Constitution. So all of this talk of these federal judges can do whatever they want. No, they do not rule the country. They are not kings. And this is the massive problem that we are facing right now. So moving on, here we go, some more, and we're about done with chapter 1 here. Never forget that these unelected judges tried to take our right to vote by unilaterally taking Trump off of our ballots. These are the judges that tried to remove Donald Trump from the ballot. The Supreme Court stepped in and said, no, you cannot do that. I believe this is the Colorado court. That's what they wanted to do, to take away our ability to actually vote for a candidate that we elected through the primary system. This is where they actually think. This is where they actually think that their power lies. That's the level to which they think their power lies. We are living under judicial tyranny. Really quick, this is an interesting take from Julie Kelly on the Benny Johnson show. Julie Kelly has done yeoman's work on January 6th. And she identifies a couple of things in this clip. It's about 4 minutes long. We're not going to play the whole thing. This is really the ending of chapter 1. But DC's federal court system, it's very interesting because DC's not a state, and technically these federal courts are outside of the SCOTUS, are supposed to be residing within the states. But this is an interesting take. And she also mentions how Trump trusted organizations like the Federalist Society. And honestly, that's how we got Amy Coney Barrett. And that absolute trash heap that doesn't have guts to actually stand up and has ruled more with the liberal side of the court than the conservative side since she actually took her position. Let's watch this real quick.
I certainly am no constitutional scholar. I just simply have conversations. I run a talk show here where I talk with smart people. Okay. And maybe some of it'll rub off, but it doesn't make any sense to me why there would be federal judges inside of a place that isn't even real. Washington, D.C. isn't a state. It's not real. Its members can't vote. The people they send to Congress don't even vote, right? Eleanor Holmes Norton. Why are we giving full jurisdiction and the capacity to assault and destroy these Americans' lives? Why does the federal court, why does that system even exist in Washington, D.C.? Why mustn't it be something that is outside in a actual real state, even if it is Maryland or Virginia? It seems insane to me, actually. DC used to be run by Congress. We used to have the Speaker of the House was like the mayor of DC, effectively. It was just seen as a federal city, and it wasn't a real place. It was never designed to be a real place, actually.
Right. I mean, I would implore Donald Trump to sign an executive order shutting down the DC federal court system, shutting down the DC U.S. Attorney's Office, and shutting down the Washington FBI field office. This is the axis of evil.
Enough.
This is the rot in our political system. They all work together, Benny. I've seen it. Half of the judges on the DC bench came out of the DC U.S. Attorney's Office. These are their colleagues. These are their buddies. These are the people whose kids go to private schools together. It's not a joke when, we make fun of the cocktail parties in Georgetown. It is a cabal. They all are from the same area. They went to the same schools. No one is going to step out of line. And I'll tell you what, some of the worst judges were appointed by Donald Trump. Now, I talked to him about this 2 years ago. And of course, he's taking recommendations like you do from people who, the Federalist Society and others. One of the worst judges in Washington, Tim Kelly, whose wife works for the mayor of Washington, D.C., Muriel Bowser. He was a DC, a prosecutor in the DC U.S. Attorney's Office. I watched in his courtroom how he systematically denied the rights of the J6 defendants before him, including the Proud Boys, refusing to allow evidence to be entered into the court, including FBI informants. He fought harder than the prosecutors did to make sure that these J6 defendants had the book thrown at them. Seditious conspiracy convictions, 22 years in prison for Enrique Terrio, who was in Baltimore on January 6th. I mean, we could go through it, but those are the high profile cases. I've also seen the lower defendants charged with misdemeanors. I was in Washington courtroom last week where the DOJ went back and wanted to put a 6-year-old woman, a widow, just lost her husband of 40 years to liver cancer. She spent 3.5 months in a dirty,
so this is just another example of why we have to be very careful. And I pray, because most likely in the next 3 years, Donald Trump is going to have to replace Samuel Alito and Clarence Thomas. I would not want to risk not being able to put somebody of that same caliber back on the court that's in their 40s, so that we can have those titans replaced for a generation again. I hope that he does not listen to places like the Federalist Society and all these other cabals. It's literally, think of small town. Think of high school sports in a small town. We see this all over the place where I live, where the buddies of the coach and the school administrator's kids always end up making the teams, even though there are better players out there who don't have the same connections with the insides of small town politics or school administration politics. That's essentially what you're dealing with. It's not what you know, it's who you know. And that's the way Washington works. And that's the way this works too. I did actually misspeak. There is one other slide, and this is a long slide, but I'm going to read through it. C reason is talking about these judges. These are all the judges that are particularly in defiance of what Donald Trump is doing. So federal judges: James Boasberg, U.S. District Court of the District of Columbia. This is exactly what Julie Kelly was just talking about. Rule against Trump administration actions, including order to halt the deportations of alleged Venezuelan gang members in 2025, cited due process concerns. Yeah, illegal immigrants get due process. I mean, what kind of premise is that? This is the problem that we have to have with the left. We got to stop arguing on their premise and reject it. This is something J.D. Vance does so well, rejecting the premise of the argument. No, I'm not going to argue on the land that you decide, the area that you decide to set the argument. I'm going to argue on the truth and what the fact of the matter is. That's it. Beryl Howell, U.S. District Court of the District of Columbia, former chief judge, oversaw a case related to Trump's actions, including January 6 related lawsuits, often ruling against his claims of immunity and privilege. Ketanji Brown Jackson. This was Biden's appointment to the Supreme Court of the United States. U.S. Supreme Court Justice, previously U.S. District Court of D.C. Are you guys seeing a pattern here? All these District of Columbia judges. I'm sorry, I'm a little fired up about this because this is ridiculous. As a district judge, she ruled against Trump in the cases like the 2019 order to compel testimony of the former White House counsel Don McGahn, rejecting executive privilege claims. Now on the Supreme Court, she votes against, her votes may influence Trump-related cases. Amit Mehta, U.S. District Court of the District of Columbia, presiding over January 6 related civil suits. Swalwell versus Trump, denying Trump's motions to dismiss claims of incitement in 2022, allowing case to proceed. Tanya Chutkin, U.S. District Court of the District of Columbia, oversaw the federal election interference case against Donald Trump 23-24, rejecting his immunity claims in 23 with a statement that the president isn't a lifelong get out of jail free card, the presidency. The case remains in limbo post Supreme Court immunity ruling. John McConnell Jr., District Court of Rhode Island, in 2025 found Trump administration defying the earlier order to unfreeze federal grant funds, ordering immediate compliance. Amy Berman Jackson, U.S. District Court, District of Columbia, blocking and firing the government watchdog Dellinger and Besant in 2025, presided over Roger Stone's criminal case facing Trump's public criticism. William Alsop, U.S. District Court of the North District of California, temporarily blocked the Trump administration from ending DACA in 2018, calling a decision arbitrary and capricious. Angel Kelly, U.S. District Court, District of Massachusetts, issued a 2025 temporary restraining order, blocking Trump planning to cut $4 billion of NIH research funding, siding with universities and states. Arthur Egonran, New York State Supreme Court, handled the federal level civil case, ruling that Trump in 2024 New York AG fraud case, ordering him to pay $355 million plus interest for fraudulent business practices. You guys remember this one, where literally nobody was hurt, but we still have to make him pay. It's utterly insane. This civil case had national implications. Judge Theodore D. Chung has barred Jeremy Lewin, a former Doge team member, from becoming a deputy administrator of USAID. Instead of letting the administration make its own staffing decisions, Judge Chung decided Lewin's loyalty to Trump disqualified him. Every administration in the history of this country has appointed people that they see as loyal to them and their ideology. This is beyond the pale. Obama, the reason we have such a cancerous deep state is because Obama put a bunch of people that aligned with his ideology in place. And Biden, and actually, if you go back to Obama, he is the one that appointed a lot of these judges that are gumming up the works for Trump. Facts. U.S. District Judge Ana Reyes, and a Biden appointee, it was the first openly lesbian federal court judge in D.C., blocked Trump administration from transgender troop ban. And this thread goes on and on and on. There's a lot more here. I'm not going to read those, but as I said earlier, sign up as a Patreon member and you get the full-blown sit rep, and hours of work goes into this every day. Myself, Chris, Jeff, we all are contributors to this. And we all work a lot of extra hours on this. So show that support. We're going to move on. So that is chapter 1. And we're going to move on to chapter 2 right after this message from Sawyer Products. And we'll be right back with chapter 2. We're going to move into some other news items for you guys.
The Sawyer Mini is the most versatile personal filtration system available. It's a perfect solution for backpacking, hiking, hunting, fishing, scouting, international travel, and emergency preparedness. At a mere 2 ounces, the Mini fits in the palm of your hand and can filter up to 100,000 gallons of water from any freshwater lake, river, or stream. The Sawyer Mini has a 0.1 micron absolute pore size. It was tested to 10 million parts of bacteria and 1 million parts of protozoa without a single breakthrough. This is the highest level filters can be tested to, so we're confident these are the highest rates of filtration available.
And we're back with chapter 2, and we're going to move into some other news items that are important, and then we're going to get to chapter 3, and we're going to have some fun. Thank you guys for staying with me during that lengthy chapter 1. I knew that was going to be an absolute monster to cover. Couple of closing ideas before we really start into chapter 2 is it is very clear that we are in a de facto cold civil war. And I don't know that we'll ever get to a level of hot civil war, because what was required for the first civil war was really that it was a geographical thing, not just an ideological thing. And this one, your neighbor may have the complete different ideology. It's a different America from the one that I grew up in, where my uncle and my father was a staunch Christian conservative Republican, and my uncle, who was by all accounts a great American, a patriotic man, served the military, was wounded in Vietnam, still has shrapnel in his leg to this day. And they would argue about politics. It was, as a young John, I would sit there at family gatherings and listen to them argue. But they always cared about each other, and then honestly, they would have taken a bullet for the other one. They loved each other, and they just had differences of opinions. That's not what we have now, because my uncle has ironically moved more towards the right as the years have gone by, as he has seen the craziness. What we have now are people that literally would be okay with you being rounded up because of you don't believe the way that they do. Because you don't want your kids transitioned, because you want to be able to own firearms, military grade firearms, and we shouldn't be apologizing for that and not arguing on that premise. Yes, that's what the Constitution means. We are the militia. Facts. But we don't have that social compact anymore. It is just people thinking horribly of their neighbors. And so we're not in a civil war like 1861, where it was this state versus that state, the southern states versus the northern states. It's ideologically you versus your neighbor. And it's actually a much more dangerous thing. It's also a much more messy thing. And it's a really, really messed up time. You know, I trust in my faith, and I do know that I have a lot of really good people around me, and we don't have to worry about that, but we do for the future of our country, for sure. So that's all I've got to say. We've got to continue to stand up, and we've got to continue to fight this judicial supremacy. Trump won a mandate last November. He won an overwhelming victory. No matter how they slice it, it was a monumental victory. And now we're seeing the fruits of all of the groundwork that Barack Obama laid, all of these deep state people that are trying to stop this from happening, because the reality is they know that if this is applied and it's successful, they can't win elections anymore, not nationally. And it undoes what has taken them decades and generations to build since the early 19th century, with the early 19th century progressives, the passing of things like the 16th and 17th Amendment to the Constitution, which are to this day the two amendments that I have the most disdain for, because it was the centralization of government power circumventing state power and federalism. Look those up: federal income tax and the election method for U.S. senators. Really, really started a lot of this roll into progressivism. But enough of that. Let's move into chapter 2 and get a little bit more of the news out of the way. So this is from Amy Gilliard. Mike Davis is fire. Trump ally. Who could be AG warns in New York's Letitia James to back off president-elect. We will put your fat ass in prison. Good. And other news, Brian Fournier, President Trump has stripped the security clearances from Joe Biden, Kamala Harris, Hillary Clinton, and Liz Cheney. Huge. These tyrants and traitors do not deserve to have security clearances. Moving on to the next one. This one's really, really good. Tommy TG me. I don't know what that means. Shared this, and this is a minute 47 seconds schooling of a civics lesson. So let's listen to this.
It is true that many of the people in this room for 4 years failed to cover the fact that Joe Biden was mentally incompetent and was not running the country. It is also true that many people in this room who have used this talking point that Elon is not elected fail to understand how government works. So I'm glad for the opportunity for a brief civics lesson. A president is elected by the whole American people. He's the only official in the entire government that is elected by the entire nation, right? Judges are appointed, members of Congress are elected at the district or state level, which is one man. And the Constitution, Article 2, has a clause known as the vesting clause, and it says the executive power shall be vested in a president, singular. The whole will of democracy is imbued into the elected president. That president then appoints staff that impose that democratic will onto the government. The threat to democracy, indeed the existential threat to democracy, is the unelected bureaucracy of lifetime tenured civil servants who believe they answer to no one, who believe they can do whatever they want without consequence, who believe they can set their own agenda no matter what Americans vote for. So Americans vote for radical FBI reform, and FBI agents say they don't want to change. Or Americans vote for radical reform on our energy policies that EPA bureaucrats say they don't want to change. Or Americans vote to end DEI, racist DEI policies, and lawyers at the Department of Justice say they don't want to change. What President Trump is doing is he is removing federal bureaucrats who are defying democracy by failing to implement his lawful orders, which are the will of the whole American
people. I'll finish the statement. Yeah. this is clearly, the Democrats clearly think that they have unlimited power and votes don't matter. What does that tell you? What does that tell you? They don't believe that you should have the power that you have. We are the government in this country. The Constitution starts with the statement, we the people, not we the government. Important distinction. Okay, let's watch our favorite teachers union boss, Randy Weingartner, today. I want schools to reopen. I wanted schools to reopen from COVID as early as April 2020. My wife is a school teacher. I remember all of this. And I know both of you guys do too. Do they forget that this is like the massive amounts of things are recorded now? And when you're on the news, the video evidence is pretty hard to get rid of on the internet. Let's watch this. I'm not going to watch the whole thing, 6 minutes and 48 seconds, but that's how much footage there is of her saying the polar opposite during the pandemic.
And if people are in high risk, they shouldn't be in school. They should be doing things remotely. Just because Donald Trump wants to take a risk with people who go to bars or beaches, those of us who have spent our life teaching kids are not going to take a risk with kids or with our members' lives.
Remote and hybrid are really the only two ways you can reopen schools safely.
You got to delay school opening because if you don't have the mask, how are you going to be able to do this? There's a huge difference between working in Walmart and working in a school.
You know, even a situation like Florida, where it was pretty clear that schools should not reopen, and where Miami schools did not reopen because you had people who were courageous and who were willing to defy DeSantis's denials.
And why are they closing now?
Martha, they're closing now because what the city said, and frankly, what lots of other places are also seeing, is a huge skyrocketing increase.
Now you're not listening to me. What they're telling us, though, is that the wisest scientific move is to have children in school.
Is that they're trying to figure out
propaganda. Just absolutely nuts. Next, moving on, Stu Peters. Jewish infiltrators secretly collaborated with U.S. intel officers to divert more than 300 kilograms of uranium U-235 to Israel from 1957 to 1978. Israel literally founded their nuclear program off of uranium stole from America. Very, very interesting. And, I have no love lost for Mossad. I think generally the Jewish people are good people. So this is kind of one of those weird things where I don't think that Mossad's any better than our own CIA. And I think they've worked together for years along with other intelligence organizations. And, that's the nature of these intelligence organizations, is they are meant to hide information and work back deals. And that leads to a lot of corruption. So very, very interesting. We'll see what comes out of that. Next, are you guys scared of this? All of you men in the chat, and actually women too. I scare MAGA men. I don't know if you guys have seen the world tour of Tim Walz lately. It's been popping up in feeds everywhere, but this guy is a moron because I'm so masculine. So let me ask you guys in the chat if you think that someone like me, or any other man or woman in the chat, if you think that this is a true statement that MAGA men are scared, put a 2 in the chat. If you think that not a single person in MAGA, male or female, is scared of Tim Walz, go ahead and put a 1 in the chat. I want to see kind of where our audience stands on this, because he does look very, very intimidating with his furrowed brow and his balding hair there, along with all of his weird. I think they're Nazi salutes. Isn't that what that is when you do this to a crowd? I think he was doing that like 9,000 times a day on the campaign trail. Go ahead and throw a 1 in the chat if you think that not a single one of us is scared of Tim Walz here. and I'm seeing the ones just piling up over here. So actually, that's really funny. I can't count all the ones. Velcro put a bunch of ones in there. Doherty put a bunch of ones. Doherty one put a bunch of ones in there. So while that's going on, let's watch this. Let's watch this this little exchange. Now, this is a 13-minute video. I'd encourage you guys to go watch it. But let's watch this little exchange. Charlie Kirk is just incredible at what he does, running around the campuses and talking to these insane liberals.
Make America Great movement, again, MAGA movement, is a cult.
No. Why don't you explain to me and the audience what is a cult?
Of course. Okay. Do you know any characteristics of a cult?
Sure. I mean, you could take the Jonestown death cult, of which there was a charismatic leader that constantly lied people, and they took him out of everyday normal life and leads them towards ostracization and cutting off of family ties. Am I getting closer to describing the Democrat Party?
According to the no, what I'm talking about is MAGA. According to the Bethune Cook University website, characteristics of a cult include isolating members and criticizing them for leaving. Would you say that members of the MAGA movement will criticize others for leaving?
Well, yeah. I mean, but you guys criticize players that transfer out of the University of Tennessee football team. That's not a cult.
Okay, what about the absolute authoritarianism without meaningful accountability?
Okay, so what you're trying to say is that, like, what the leader says, the leader gets, basically?
Yes, Trump.
We have lots of disagreements in the MAGA movement. In fact, I'm more pro-life than the president is. In fact, a lot of people in this audience would have differing views maybe on where the president is at on Israel or Gaza or Ukraine or Russia. In fact, some people in this audience might say the president is not as pro-Second Amendment as they would like. I would argue that we actually have far more intellectual diversity in the MAGA movement than your traditional Democrat Party.
I'm going to stop it there because I think he already kind of disabused her of her premise, and that's important when having these arguments and debates, because you have to be able to reject the premise of their argument and be able to turn that argument around. One of the best that I've seen recently, Charlie Kirk is amazing. On the national stage and in the political world, JD Vance is very, very good at doing this with the media, like God tier level, just amazing. In other news, I am still trying to figure out this 24-year-old TikToker known for filming videos of himself binge eating has died due to health complications. This is a shock. I can't honestly figure out for the life of me why this death happened. I can't see one single reason why somebody who binge eats like this would die at a young age.
Yeah.
It's sad. And there's a lot of these TikTokers out there who apparently there's an audience for watching people be gluttons, which is sick and weird. But anyways, moving on, this is what you get. And I think that this video, truly the caption up here from End Wokeness is truly, it is truly the case. This video perfectly sums up the UK currently. Let's watch this. 25 seconds.
Hurry up!
going on? I'm telling you, fucking to the student. Got me out of go to the shit was on. I'll show you my.
Yeah. What a weak nation. That's all I will say. An overrun weak nation that does not allow their police to carry weapons to defend themselves, but they still have to go out and enforce the law. They're essentially mall cops. You know, Paul Blart would get a job for Scotland Yard. It's absolutely nuts. In other news, Tesla terrorism is still going on. Got a couple of videos to show you on that, and then we'll move on to chapter 3. All I can say is I really hope, really hope, FAFO, I really hope that they start prosecuting these people because these people are stupid. They're just absolutely stupid. Just walking by, keying it. Another one here, woman caught keying a Tesla Model Y. But the answer is what's going on in Vegas. I have to say, not a big fan of the Cybertruck just the way it looks. I think it looks like a 8-bit version of a Pontiac Aztek. If you guys ever watched Breaking Bad, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. But I have to admit, this is kind of cool. An anonymous donor donated 10 Cybertrucks to the Las Vegas Police Department. These look so badass, and I actually kind of agree here. Let's watch this real quick.
They 10 Cybertrucks to their fleet, but I think the story is actually much bigger. When the community found out about this, people were outraged because Cybertrucks are ridiculously expensive and they're not particularly good vehicles, especially for police. When the sheriff announced the Cybertrucks, he was quick to point out that they didn't buy them, but they were donated anonymously. Now, aside from the very obvious parallels that having militarized police forces in vehicles that look like Cybertrucks is very bad for the community, a lot of people thought that it was Elon Musk who donated the Cybertrucks to the police, that it wasn't. Billionaires are funding the police. And before you say, oh, it's just a donation, if the donation is used for police operations like the flock cameras or the Cybertrucks, that money is used for policing.
Yeah, so that's just obviously by the audio, you can tell that's a leftist bitch just crying and whining. I don't know, man. I think that looks kind of cool, though. I do think that's kind of a cool look for a police vehicle. Just gonna say, looks like it's something that's like Sylvester Stallone would pop out of while he's going to Taco Bell, if you guys get the reference. So, yeah, and that is the end of chapter 2. And we're going to move right into chapter 3 and get to some fun. Let me actually stop sharing real quick, and I'm going to pull up these other slides that I didn't have for chapter 3. Real quick, Demolition Man. Yeah, low-class citizen got it. Yeah, and actually several of you guys got it. So, yeah, pretty cool. Looks like Sandra Bullock and Sylvester Stallone could roll up in that bad boy. For sure. I'm pulling these up, and while I'm pulling them up, what do you guys think? You think that the Cybertruck actually looks kind of cool as a police vehicle? If you do, go ahead and throw a 1 in the chat. If not, throw a 2. And this is not really anything biased. It's just a preference thing. I honestly think it does look pretty cool. But that's just me, and I'm not a fan of the Cybertruck the way it looks. But it does have kind of a cool look, kind of, almost like Halo. The video game, and let's just get that real quick. I'll have to ask Dave when I see him tomorrow what he thinks about the Cybertruck police vehicles. As a 29-year police officer, he probably has a an opinion on the whole thing. So I'm just pulling up these last few here, and we will get rolling. There's actually quite a few here in chapter 3. Okay. Starting off with our good buddy Retard Finder. And I've loved this guy ever since he busted onto the scene. I think that's an accurate description of the last 3 terms of presidents. You know, Donald Trump, you know, the smiling Donald Trump that was happy and didn't realize what the deep state was about to do to him. And then Smoothhead. And I don't see an ice cream cone here. That's the only thing really missing from this picture. And an auto pen, ice cream and auto pen. And this would be a complete photo. And then Trump, the return of the Jedi, Donald Trump, after the Empire Strikes Back. So yeah, I think that's accurate. And real quick, let's look and see. 654,000 followers for Retard Finder. Really incredible. That guy has taken off in a crazy way. I don't know if you guys needed any kind of reminding, but this is a thing. We once again are reminded that the Taliban has rollerblading battalion. Don't honestly know the tactical advantage of rollerblading, but hey, you do you. Real quick, earlier we talked about the bricks in 2020. We actually found exclusive. This is breaking news, Survival Dispatch exclusive on what those pallets of bricks, once they were hauled off from the peaceful protest, what they actually became. So let's take a look here real quick.
Some bricks. A pile of bricks.
This the setup. They put them there on purpose, y'all know where we at.
Let's build a wall on the Canadian border.
Some bricks. A pile.
So now you know, guys, that's where those bricks went, using for a good purpose. So let's talk about the DoorCam Olympics. This is a new event sponsored by Survival Dispatch. You guys can like and subscribe for more content like this. And here we go. This is the DoorCam Olympics version 1. It's a lot of frozen milk.
No, I'm fine. Love you, Tiffany. That was slippery.
Oh. Impromptu ice bath. Pretty funny stuff. pretty funny stuff. I can only imagine there's probably hours upon hours, probably thousands of hours of footage of random weird things happening on Ring door cams. Real quick, they know who killed JFK. Quick, talk about the pyramids. A little witty for you guys. And I had to see it. Thanks, Chris Heaven, for sending this one to me. Okay, raise your hands if it gave you a boner. If it doesn't give you a boner, then you're a bigot. What do you guys think? Is that a true statement? If you think that's a true statement, put a 2 in the chat. Otherwise, put a 1 in the chat if you don't think that what she's saying here is a true statement. I'm just gonna like push my 1 button down and leave it down. Okay. This is hilarious and gonna break the ice for you guys. Very, very important that you guys understand accents.
A penis in your asshole.
I beg your pardon, sir. I think you must be saying that wrong.
No. The key to life is a penis in your asshole.
I don't think you're saying what you mean to say.
Oh, oui. A penis, you know, to smile, to be happy.
Oh, happiness. Honey, it's okay.
In your asshole.
That's
No, not your asshole. Where you live, your appartement, your domicile. Your house.
household.
Ah!
Oh, Super Trooper movies. Fantastic stuff. Real quick, don't judge too quickly. Let's watch this one.
Hey, dude. Yeah, come on.
Oops.
Hello. How much are they asking?
Well, that's a lot of money for a deck.
Well, I hate to tell you this, but you're getting robbed. Did you hear me? You're getting robbed. Ow! Stop! Stop!
Hi, can I get a quarter with change?
Oh, it's me.
Sorry.
Oh, Kevin. Hi. So what are you doing?
Dude, I forgot your wallet.
Ow. Patient has a fractured fibula. Given, well, Saturday. So I could be able to go home tomorrow.
Daddy's gonna be so excited.
That killed him.
I don't hate your mother. Morning, Bev.
All the boys are calling crazy girls. I hope she sings this tonight. I know. Hey guys, whoever, we need to go.
Come on. Oh, honey. Here's some money.
What do we got here?
Oh, that's NG.
Oh.
Look at the cute dog.
Oh. Oh, that's pretty good. It's always good to laugh. Always good to laugh. That's how we get through the fall of Western civilization without going mentally insane. All right, Sassafras 84. Yes, we were. Guess who pushed the fake news? The Democrats. Hunter Biden's laptop, mRNA vaccine harm, pandemic, lockdown, ivermectin efficacy, HCQ efficacy, face mask uses, censorship, social media, Epstein's sex island, elite pedophilia, biolabs, Ukraine, child trafficking, Russiagate, Steele dossier, Ukraine corruption. Looks like conspiracy theorists are batting 1,000, guys. Probably need to come up with some new ones because all of ours have come true. AOC called Musk unqualified. That's almost like a bartender calling a rocket scientist stupid. Oh, wait. Yeah, that's a good point. And here we go. Another one from Sassafras. I just bought a new Jeep and named it Elizabeth Warren because it's all white, and it says it's a Cherokee. That's a fair point. And we pull up our memes here. As soon as I find it here in my 5,000 open open windows on my computer. Here you go. Those who break the law will be arrested, and that includes mayors. Elon Musk. Tesla hires new security team to guard against left-wing terrorism. Rock solid. It's the rooftop Koreans. Peaceful protests. Yep. Domestic terrorism. Peaceful protest. You guys seeing the pattern here? Memes do a better job at reporting current events than mainstream media. Yeah, they should probably fix something about that. 2025, still unvaxxed, still alive. Sorry to disappoint. Still smart, too. Sheeple. Red Pill Expo 2018. 6 companies control 96% of world media. Here we go. Finding the retards. This is Retard Finder. Half of America right now. I should film my mental breakdown and post it online. Boy, that's the truth. Just get on TikTok for 5 seconds. And that's where libs of TikTok got their start, was just posting the crazy stuff that leftists post. You people act like you've never seen a man French kiss his own grandchild before. Woo! Spelling lesson. The last four letters in American. I can. The last 4 letters in Republican. I can. The last 4 letters in Democrats. Rats. Coincidence? I think not. When I was a kid, this was my computer. Delete, refresh, print. Yes, absolutely. Oh, I've seen this far too many times. For the love of God, arrest somebody. Men, women, crazy effers. Boy, I think that's really how all bathrooms should be from now on, and just label them that and have it go that way. For those of you easily offended, Whiskey Echoes, Delta Oscar, November Tango, Gamma India, Victor, Echo, Alpha, Foxtrot, Uniform, Charlie, Kilo. If you know, you know. Ireland is imposing a 125% tariff on U.S. goods, on imported U.S. goods, until we agree to take Rosie back. Oh, goodness. I have a bad back. The front's pretty hipped up, too. Oh, pretty good. Hung? Not hung. Big Mike there. By the way, what's with the hairdos? They're just random weird stuff that Mike does there. To anger a conservative, lie to him. To anger a liberal, tell him the truth. Theodore Roosevelt. Woo! That'll preach. The most dishonest man alive, little Adam Schiff. Science warned climate change will continue to affect locations that the government wants to buy at a discounted price. Interesting. The JD Bunch. Very good. Oh, we saw that one earlier. These JD face memes are fantastic. Ironically, his face fits a lot of things in a really weird way where it doesn't look ridiculous. I stand with Wu Quain. Yep. That's about the truth. Adam Kinzinger is the leader of that realm. We need to stay calm as a Hindu cow, and go about work and get our bills passed and let the Democrats be the Democrats. So far, it's working. You'll never interfere with your opponent when he is kicking his own ass. John Kennedy. Boy. Musk caught us stealing. The paddle. I love that. Oh, and here we go. The orchestra of Elon Musk. And that is the conclusion of all of our fun, zany headlines, memes, all of that stuff. So let's move to what you guys can do. What is your homework? What are your marching orders? And I have a few here, and I want to share with you guys. And it's not going to be outside of the realm of what we normally tell you guys, but I think it's just more and more important. The importance of it is growing on a daily basis, that we continue to stay the course, that we continue to uphold and support the work that's being done. Call it out when it's too weak, but continue to march on. March back through the institutions and reclaim them for the cause of liberty and the Constitution. Okay, 1, stay informed and educated. Regularly follow trusted news sources and podcasts like Survival Dispatch. Clearly communicate constitutional principles. Understand foundational documents like the Constitution, Bill of Rights, and landmark Supreme Court decisions such as Bruin. Also, for a little bit more light reading, read the Federalist Papers, read supporting documents of the Constitution. They really tell you the whole story of where the founders' minds were, especially on things like the Second Amendment. There's so much supporting documentation on what they actually meant when they brought that into the Bill of Rights. Engage locally, attend school board meetings, city councils, state legislative meetings. Speak out clearly and respectfully against unconstitutional laws and ordinances. Support constitutional organizations or any kind of organization that aligns with your beliefs, including Survival Dispatch. Once again, hit us up on Patreon and become a supporter and get all of the benefits of that. And financially support groups advocating for constitutional rights, gun rights, educational freedom, and secure borders. Hold officials accountable. Contact local, state, and federal representatives to express your stance against unconstitutional legislation and judicial overreach. Vote consistently, supporting candidates that commit themselves to constitutional originalism and the rule of law. We need that in the worst way. We need states to stand up and be federal. We need federalism to return. And a side note on that real quick. Everybody wants to talk about Trump is a tyrant. What is Trump actually doing with all of the things he's trying to do? He's trying to put education back in the hands of the state. He's trying to put all of these things back in the hands of the state. We've already put abortion back in the hands of the state. He's trying to keep states from ruling over their constituents with a iron fist in tyranny. He's trying to get the federal government out of opposing the people's rights, and specifically with the Second Amendment and freedom of speech. That's not what tyrants do. That's the opposite of what tyrants do. Tyrants try to centralize power. He's trying to decentralize it. And this is the number one argument you can use against that, because his actions do not scream tyrant. His actions scream return to the founding principles, the way the country is supposed to be run. Community organization number 5, form and join local groups and focus on constitutional education, preparedness, and civic engagement. Share resources and information, building stronger communities, resistance, and ideological manipulation. We've got to get back to being involved in our local communities, not just here on the internet where we all find communities and it's easier to find people that align. We got to find those people where we live too. And in a survival situation, you need those people worse than you know. Legal action advocacy, support lawsuits and legal organizations challenging unconstitutional legislation. Advocate for judicial nominees who respect constitutional originalism. That is one of the big things that's going to happen in the next 3 years. I think realistically, Trump could actually get another 3 Supreme Court justices, because one of them could be on the liberal side. Sotomayor does not have good health right now, and she may try and stick it out to the next election, but there's a very, very good chance that her issues with diabetes could end up ending her term early. Not necessarily her life, but her term for sure. And secure your own rights. Exercise your constitutional rights responsibly and openly, setting the example for others. Don't hide behind being afraid of what may happen. Stand up and exercise your rights. Invest in training, be it firearms proficiency, civic activism, home preparedness, self-defense. All of those things are important. Remember, defending America's foundational principles begins in our own communities. Be vocal, organized, informed, and all of the above, and above all, consistent. Sorry. And yes, Robert Larson, pray unceasingly. Stay well, rack it, and stack it. Peace. Absolutely. And I'm going to start something. I'm a devout Christian, very, very open with my faith. And we have Jeff Nicholas on from time to time, and he always prays. I'm going to actually close us out in prayer before we roll the end video. Real quick, one last reminder. Hit us up, like, share, comment, and subscribe, and get involved as well as however you may. So let's pray real quick, and then I'll let you guys go. Heavenly Father, I'm thankful for this audience. I'm thankful for all of the minds and all of the people that are aligned with us in the political world, and those, many of them, that believe in you, Lord. And I pray that you be the guiding light here, that you be the guiding light for our president, for our Congress, for all of the people that are involved in trying to turn this country around. I pray that you lead that you be the light that guides us to the freedom and liberty that you inspired in our founders so many centuries ago, Lord. I pray that you give us knowledge and wisdom to be able to combat the arguments and the evil that is in front of us, that you give us favor with all of the people, maybe like myself, who are living in a state that does not like my ideology and my belief in you, Lord. I pray that you give us favor with people that don't even agree with us. I pray that you help us to guide those that can be guided, to influence those that can be influenced, and help us turn this around for all of us and our future generations. In Jesus' name, amen. Thank you guys very much for joining me tonight. I will be here making the announcement here now, and it may have already been made, but I am going to be your host on Tuesday evenings and Sunday evenings, barring any kind of catastrophe. That will be my normal schedule. I'll also be jumping in on panels from time to time as family time allows. Also doing a lot of content for Righteous Savages that's going to be coming out. We're kind of almost really relaunching a lot of things in a little bit different way. And we really love you guys to support that as well. But I'll see you guys on Tuesday night. And until then, be safe, be free, stand up. God bless America.
I am living the American dream. And anyone that thinks the American dream is dead, just look right here. You're talking to a first-generation Indian kid who's about to lead the law enforcement community, the greatest nation on God's green earth.
Cash, defender of Americans.
We're in this room together because you guys have a love of country that is truly inspirational, and it bleeds out everywhere we go. If you look around this room, you see civil servants, you see warriors, you see attorneys, you see great husbands and fathers and mothers and wives. We're fighting for the same thing, our future. There's a singular system of justice for all Americans, and there will be accountability. Anyone that wishes to do harm to our way of life and our citizens here or abroad will face the full wrath of the Department of Justice and the Federal Bureau of Investigation. And if you seek to hide in any corner of this country or any corner of this planet, we will put on the world's largest manhunt, and we will find you, and we will decide your end state, not you. We will uphold the Constitution. The men and women at the FBI, I have your back because you have the backs of the American people. The men and women at the FBI who make us safe deserve better, and they are going to get it with our leadership and your support. God bless America, and God bless every one of you. I love this country.